settle in, grab your beverage of choice, and depending on where you are and what time it is, if it's in the morning, make sure it's very strong with alcohol. If it's in the evening, make sure it's very strong with alcohol. And if it's in the middle of the day, make sure it's definitely very strong with alcohol. I know mine is. Just kidding. That is matcha. Everybody relax. Okay, this was built for our internal setter teams, and it's literally every single scenario, including all of the prerequisites inside of this training portion, which we're going to mainly focus on today on the prerequisite side of it, on common pitfalls and all this stuff, like the prerequisites. Everybody thinks they just need the script of what to say. That's like thinking that in order to be a concert pianist, that all you need is a piano. I can give you the same piano as I give Beethoven. You're going to get different results, right? So I can give you the same script. You need to know how to use it and what to do with it. A lot of people don't want to pay attention to that part. So if you want to be rich, pay attention. If you don't, just wait until the replay, get the script, and then come back 3 months later after you beat your face against the wall and ask me why nothing worked. So we're going to go through mainly the training part of this today and all of the basic communication fundamentals. Before we get into the script, we are going to review the basic script, but a lot needs to happen before that. And if you are watching this on the replay, it would be an amazing idea if you skipped all the way forward to this, is to at least go back and watch the Money Flow masterclass and go through that workbook, because that is the preamble to this. Let's roll. And then next week, by the way, what I'm going to do is there's going to be a whole bunch of questions and of what if this situation, what if that situation, what about this objection? How do I handle that? That's going to be nuanced. The great news is after thousands and thousands of setting conversations and actual sets, we've literally documented word for word every single thing that has ever happened in a setting scenario. And it's on this document. It's here. There's a lot. We're going to cover as many of those as we can, along with some rules so that you can tailor them to your own business. And also objections and when people try to challenge you with questions, all of that type of ancillary stuff we're going to handle next week, and the psychology behind why that happens. Today is like it's setting and sales 101, really. Okay, does this make sense? Thumbs up if this makes sense to you guys. If you're down for that, cool. It's challenging because you guys want everything in 30 seconds and it's pretty much impossible to do. So I got to make the balance of making sure that it's good enough to be useful and also quick enough that you can get through it. So what's also amazing, what's truly amazing, is at the end of this, we have links. I'm not going to scroll all the way down to the end of this, but we have links to a whole bunch of dozens of actual internal setter trainings that I've done for my team over the years, as well as example sets with screenshots and walkthroughs of the entire setting conversation on DM, as well as recorded sets over the phone. This is the most loaded thing that you could ever possibly get. So it's a lot, but this is, if you actually go through this and pay attention to this, is going to be amazing for you. Okay. I also did not invent all of this. So here's a list of sources. I already recapped. All right. The most important thing, hands up if you hate sales or you would rather not sell, or you slightly dislike selling in some way. I don't want to sell. Yeah, nobody wants to sell. So another show of hands if you're good at what you do. How many of you are good at what you do? Good. Thank God. If you're not, level up your skill set. It'll improve your confidence. That'll help you sell better. How many of you, show of hands, have a solution to somebody's problem? Great. A lot of hands went up there. So you're good at what you do and you have a solution, but there's people that have not. How many of you guys who have that solution, that you're good at what you do, have people that have not bought that solution, therefore they still have the problem? Me too. There's thousands and thousands of people who have not bought my. So right now, there are people suffering in silence because you're not selling your solution. There's people right now that are suffering in silence. If you have a solution to someone's problem and they don't buy it, one of two things happens. They're going to get sold by someone who isn't as good at serving as you. How many of you guys have lost customers to an inferior competitor? Or they don't get a solution at all and they keep their problem. So selling is serving. How many of you guys like serving people? Great. Then this should be a breeze. So if selling is service and service solves problems and selling brings in money and money solves problems, then selling solves problems. So my invitation for you is to decide to stop screwing people over by withholding your solution from them. Amazing. I can't stress this one enough, because all of you who have gotten to the point of, should I reach out? Should I say that? If you don't sell them on your shit, they're going to go with somebody who sucks more, or they're not going to go with anyone and they're going to keep their problem. So by you withholding, you're just being a selfish because of your stupid little feelings. You guys see that? Who thinks I'm exaggerating and that's not true? Anyone? I didn't think so. So you have a responsibility to get your solutions into your target market's hands, whether you feel like it or not. Okay. If you took nothing else from this training and all you did was decide that you were going to serve the shit out of people and that they were going to, and you saw them suffering literally with problems. How many of you guys have problems where you know, either publicly or privately, your clients have cried about them? Anybody actually shed tears? Your target market actually cried about the overwhelm that they're dealing with, or the fact that they hate their body, or whatever the problem that you solve? Yeah. So it's basically the equivalent of, I have a newborn son, or he's 4 months old now. It's the equivalent of knowing that I could go pick him up and console him, or I could just let him keep crying in the other room. Most of you, if you're not where you want to be, are letting your newborn cry in the other room because you're too annoyed to go console them. That would go into the what not to do category as a parent. It also goes into the what not to do category as a business owner, as an appointment setter, as a salesperson. And if you're newer and you don't have a team, you're all of those. So your audience right now, your prospects, your target market, they're all crying. And they're either going to get consoled by some other asshole who's going to walk in there and take your kid, or you're going to go do it. But if you hesitate, the kid's and you're an ass, basically. Okay. So I use the aggressive language, A, because it's easier for me, but B, because I want to really illustrate this point. Because if you don't get this, nothing in a script is going to be a substitute for what I'm sharing with you. Hands up if this makes sense. Fantastic. Okay, so now that we're not going to fuck people over, some first principles. You want to review this training over and over again and again, and you have to master this. There's no option. I'll just, in the interest of time, I will tell you, if you don't like to go sell and you try to go and hire an appointment setter or hire a salesperson, if they care more about solving your target market's problems than you do, and it's not important enough for you to learn the most important skills in business, then you should right now get off the Zoom call, ask for a refund, unsubscribe, and quit your business and go do something else. That is the dead honest truth, and I wish I didn't have to be so aggressive about it, but I'm trying to really drive this point home. The marketplace doesn't give a shit. They don't. It's ruthless out there. So if you don't take this seriously and you don't decide to master the one thing that actually brings in income, when income is the lifeblood of your business and it's not important enough for you to master, quit, do something else. I sincerely mean that. I don't say that as don't be ashamed about it. Like, just, it's okay. It's not for everybody. But if you're going to master this, you become a master of it. It's only two options. You can't half-ass your way to lots of calls, lots of customers, and lots of money. You can't tiptoe your way there. When I had the realization that influence in sales was the most important tool that you could possibly learn in your entire life, it's applicable everywhere. I'm able to serve my wife when she's feeling some type of way about something. I can sell her out of the way that she's feeling. How many of you guys would like to sell your significant other better on stop being such a pain in the ass sometimes? Yeah. Appointment setting is the foundation of that. Influence is influence. Psychology is psychology. And the more you can understand the fundamentals of how to understand your target audience, in that case, my wife, and understand her psychology, the more that I can skillfully handle her psychology in a way that both serves her and me and the collective. I'm not going to let her suffer in silence when I have a solution. It's the foundation of everything. Take this seriously. You have no other choice. You're not going to be able to sell somebody who's a good salesperson to come sell for you if you at sales. You're not going to be able to set them on an appointment and convince them to come crush it for you if you don't know how to set appointments for yourself. You won't be able to even set an interview. Okay. How many of you guys see the aggressive importance of this skill set? Okay. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Appointment setting is just selling somebody on a call to show up and say, hey, we're not even asking for money yet. So how many of you guys want thousands and thousands, maybe even millions of dollars for the you sell, right? If that's the case and you can't sell somebody on a call, you have no chance on selling them on a product or service. It's impossible. So decide right now to get good at this or quit. Y'all are still here. Fantastic. So when you do this, you'll always be able to make money and you'll be able to manage an appointment setter and you'll be able to QA them and know when they fuck up, how to fix it, because daddy or big mama can come in and show them how it's done. I've had to do that many times. But the good news is when I come and do it, money happens. And I know I can get myself out of any situation. How many of you guys would like that luxury of just knowing that you can get yourself in or out of any situation you want? That's the importance of this. There is a lot to learn. Emphasis on a lot to learn, but it is the most important skill you will possibly learn. So the more you do of this, the faster you'll learn. Remember the feedback loop from last week, right? The more you do this, the more feedback you get, negative or positive, and the better you'll get. And all of this will work for any appointment setting method. I don't care if it's email, text message, direct message, phone, in person, you met somebody at a networking event, it doesn't matter. All the fundamentals are the same, okay? And we talked about outflow versus inflow last week. You cannot inflow without first outflowing. We're going to break that down in just a second. And as the first fundamental, where everybody up, is they try to be interesting. They try to say, here's what I do. Here's how I can help you. Here's how smart I am. Don't do that. Nobody gives a shit. What you have to do to inflow is first outflow. So in order to inflow people being interested in your, how many guys want more people interested in your? Okay, in order to do that, we must first outflow interest to inflow interest. It is impossible to just sit there and try to be interesting. That would be all that can happen from there is a repulsion. What'll happen is you'll start emanating frustration from that by just trying to be interested and wondering why, or trying to be interesting and wondering why nobody's interested. It's because you're not interested enough in them to understand their problems thoroughly, and therefore solving their problems thoroughly, really. Not just giving them a pitch, but actually helping them, okay? So we must first outflow interest. In other words, what are your challenges? Excuse me. What are your challenges? Tell me about your situation. What are you trying to accomplish? And genuinely being interested, not because it's on a script. How many of you guys have ever been DM pitched something where it was obvious that they were using a script and they weren't actually interested at all? Then how many of you guys have ever been in a situation where somebody actually, they were like, this person truly gives a shit? The second person is going to win all the time. Same script, different intention. So we have to actually have the genuine intention to be interested enough in our target market to actually solve their problems. It's the only way any of this works. You can't script your way there, I promise you. Okay, now, as we're doing that, we're going to get into more tactical stuff, but that was important. So we have some pipeline stages. So we've already talked about this in other master classes where we outflow value. It comes in the form of, we'll say diamonds, right? And that's long form videos, short form text, long form text, short form videos. And this can be direct cold outreach, ads, you name it, whatever. There's something that somebody saw or heard that made them first aware of you. And then if it was good enough and it was appropriate enough, like we talked about value and utility in the last masterclass, they become interested. From the time they're interested to the time we're going to have a conversation with them, that's when appointment setting takes place. And again, everything that we're going to cover is applicable for all of these mediums and ways of doing it. And all we're trying to do at that step, once we have a conversation, is be interested enough to see if we can help them. And if we can help them, move them to a book call. That's all we're trying to do. At every stage of the funnel, all you're trying to do is a quick reminder when somebody's aware of you. Oh, hey, there you are. That would be aware. I'm just trying to get them interested. The only way I can get them interested is being enough interested in them to create, hopefully, that piece of content that actually spoke to their problem. Then they'll see, oh, they're interested enough in me. That's like entering the conversation in my head. That's probably what led a lot of you guys here today. I said something out there that made you go, this guy seems to know me. How many of you had that experience to some degree? Show of hands. So from that point, at least, and to be very clear, this is appointment setting and sales in general. We're not talking about selling stuff from a sales page and all that stuff. This is like basics of like human to human sales, which is where under 100K a month, all of you guys should be doing. You should. And the reason is not because I believe that you should need punishment. It's because the only way to get sales pages, video sales letters, webinars, and all of that stuff that is leveraged any good is by talking to thousands of people in your target audience and hearing what they say. That's the only way actual leveraged marketing, if you want to call it that like sales without a human gets any good, is because there's thousands of conversations that happen that lead to, man, this guy, he said exactly what I needed to hear. That wasn't a magic trick. That was because I've legit talked to tens of thousands of you guys. Okay. I wish there was a better shortcut. This is the shortcut. The good news is short term, when you get good at this, you can make money, a lot of it. Okay. So all I'm ever trying to do when I get them interested is get them to have a conversation with me. And on that conversation, all I'm really ever trying to do is get them to book a call. What a lot of people do is they try to make them aware of their product and then they pitch them right out of the gate and nobody buys. So we're just trying to move them to the next stage. And when we do this correctly and we have out of value at each level, ideally, so there's value here, there's value here, there's even more value here, there's even more value here. When we keep outflowing value, we will inflow value. And when we have the feedback loop, which I believe I did maybe I didn't. Oh yeah, we did the feedback loop. I pasted this from the last lesson. When we do this enough, the efficient way, we do an action, get a good result, we get feedback, and then we do that action again, and we have this beautiful feedback loop that makes each of those stages even better and more efficient. Thumbs up if this is making sense for you so far. Cool, because I know I'm going real fast. So the stages of this, to get a little bit more nitty gritty, to make sure that we're talking about the same language, and this is really meant to be like 1, 2, 3, and so on, all the way down, continuing here. Outbound, I reach out, I say, hey, I send you a value video on social media, right, per the stupid simple sales system, or I reach out, I call you up, I say, hey, or I walk into your office and I say, yo, I'm here now. That would be an outbound, right? And we talk about, these are the Teddy KPIs. So if you're using Teddy, congratulations. New DM, meaning an outbound direct message was sent. A new dial, outbound dial was initiated and the phone rang until you hit voicemail. Meaningful conversation, we log as DMs. In DMs, it's 3 engaged back and forth messages. So if you say, hey, and they say hi, and then they leave, that's not a meaningful conversation. If they say, hey, hi, how's it going? Good. Tell me about your and they do, that would be a meaningful conversation. Dials, meaningful conversation if they answered the phone. That's how we track it. That's how I'd recommend you tracking it. Book call, a calendar invitation was accepted by the prospect. You didn't just send it. You sent it. It was accepted. A time was agreed upon. They said, yep, I'll be there. Cool. Do, it was confirmed by the closer or you, like, hey, we have an appointment today at 2. You're going to be there? Sure am. Cool. That means it's supposed to show. If you say, hey, we got an appointment at 2 p.m. today, you're going to show, and they don't respond, that appointment isn't supposed to happen anymore. They didn't confirm. It's no longer due to happen. Showed, were they there? Hello, I am here on the call. That would be showed. Offer, did you pitch them and say, hey, it is this much, please buy it? These aren't the scripts, by the way. This is just the illustration of, wouldn't it be amazing if it was that easy? Hey, are you going to show up? Yes, I am. And then they showed up. Wouldn't that be amazing? Hey, would you like to buy my? Sure would. Here's my card. Like, that would be remarkable if that was the case. Deposit. A deposit is something that is optional, that the prospect maybe placed down a down payment on a larger purchase to then complete payment at a later time, preferably within the next 24 hours. Closed. Did they sign an agreement and pay? Many people, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people, yeah, I closed the deal. Oh yeah, you got the signed agreement, they paid? No, but he's totally said he was going to. That's not closed, to be honest, to be very clear. The deal is only closed when the money hits your bank account. That's when it's closed, to be clear. And there's an agreement signed. That's when a deal is closed. And then these things I just put in here. Revenue is the contract amount. So if you sell something for 10K and only collect 5K up front, 10K is the revenue amount. 5K is the cash collected, and that would be upfront cash collected. We'll probably do a separate, all this is in Teddy, but recurring cash collected would be cash collected from payment plans like that. Okay, now we got definitions down. The goal of setting, if you're trying to set as many calls as possible, and this is, by the way, if you're I'll do a very ghetto org chart. Right now, if you're just starting, you're a CEO, your chief sales officer, which under the chief sales officer would be sales manager, and then there would be setter manager and setters, and then there would be closer managers and closers. So in the beginning, you're wearing all of these hats, okay? But this is basically the deal. You're wearing all of these hats. The idea is you get good at each one so that you basically delegate one by one over time. But I'm not saying do this immediately, just to give you a basic idea of what does an organization chart look like as it relates to setting in sales. So hey, what we're talking about here is very specifically for everyone on this leg right here. Actually, everyone in this entire org chart should know. Closers should know how to set, and setters hopefully want to learn how to close. You should need to know all of this because you're not going to be able to manage a head of sales or a sales manager or a setter manager or a setter from up here unless you know what good looks like. Okay? So if you're specifically this guy right here, which you are, setters, welcome. The goal, if you're trying to make as much money as possible, is set the 5 best calls you can on a calendar in a given day. Sometimes, this isn't ideal, but sometimes, especially I'm speaking to if you're a setter on a team, sometimes the best is 5 homeless refugees, but we'll cancel those because probably not going to be able to buy our, but we set them so that we get good at setting feedback loops, repetitions. And sometimes the best is 5 perfect fits. Sometimes it's a combination of the two. So if you can't hit your booking goal, my goal is 5, I want to hit at least 10 conversations. If I can't hit 10 conversations, I got to hit at least 100 outbound DMs or dials. And you want to do this until you have predictable conversion rates. That's what we're trying to establish here, is what is a predictable activity that I can do this number of, and I will get this output. What is the input that I can do that will predictably get this output? And that's why a huge volume of stuff is very necessary. You can't have 10 setting conversations and expect that to be the predictable thing that happens moving forward. I should have gathered it, but maybe while I'm on here, you can gather what are our ratios, our historical ratios. Because I believe ours is like total on thousands of conversations. And this is after I've trained them. And this includes conversations that I've had in this business specifically. I think it's something like 100 outbound to 1 sale. I think it is. It's something like that. Kayla's going to get the actual numbers, but we want to have, these are just examples. We want to have a predictable, if I book 5, I'll close 1. And if I talk to 5 people, I'll book 1. And if I do 15 outbound, I'll have 1 person to talk to. Therefore, I now know how many people I need to reach out to in order to close a deal. Then it becomes, are you willing to actually do that? Make sense? It's just math, but we got to establish a baseline. Your first objective is to establish a baseline of conversion rates. The goal of setting, though, is not, and I repeat, the goal of setting is to not sell them on your thing. It's not to educate them, and it's not to solve their problem. I know I just started with sales is problem solving. You can only actually thoroughly understand their problem if you get them on an actual sales call. You want to get them from a conversation to a call so that you can thoroughly do a diagnosis. It's why doctors don't diagnose over the phone. If you call the doctor's office and you say, hey, I have a pain in my whatever, they don't start diagnosing you on the phone. The reason is they want you to come into the office, they want to do some tests, they want to check you out, and they want to thoroughly understand. How many of you guys, if they diagnosed you over the phone and offered to write you a prescription in 5 minutes or less, would you feel confident in that doctor? Show of hands, how many of you would feel very confident knowing that they thoroughly knew everything exactly? Nobody would. So you're not trying to sell them on your thing. You're not trying to pitch them. All you're trying to do is say, this requires a further diagnosis or a further discovery before I can do an official diagnosis. That's all we're doing in a setting situation, is we're scratching the itch just a little bit so that it starts to itch and they go, I need the remedy. And if the only way to get the remedy is to really get the full diagnosis, and the only way to get a full diagnosis is to get on a call with you, then I guess we're booking a call. That's all we're doing. That's the only way we can serve them. Thumbs up if you guys are tracking with this. Sweet. So from last week, just as a reminder, we want to, this is direct copy and paste from last week's workbook, but it's put out value in volume consistently to the right people. When you talk to them, you get their feedback, questions, and objections on what they misunderstood, what was clear, what was irrelevant, and then you improve everything across the board. When you do that, your gets good over time. As long as when they say, hey, here's my objection, you don't just go, darn it, guess I can't handle that one. When I get an objection, the reason all of this resource exists is because what I do that's differently than seemingly everyone else is when I get an objection, I feverishly and ferociously attack all material that even comes close to handling that objection out there, whether it's YouTube videos, books, whatever, and I type the words of what I'm going to say next time I get that objection, and then I have it in front of me next time. Millions of dollars made as a result of that. Nobody wants to do it. Luckily, I've done a lot of the heavy lifting for you, and you have it in this document. The challenge is I've done the heavy lifting for you. So I have a much different ownership over these words than you ever will, but it's a starting point. So my advice is, as we go through, specifically next week, when we go through like the nitty gritty details of it, that you take that and reword to make it your own, and you really think it through. Don't just replace a couple words and call it good. Like, you have to actually think it through and then try it, and you'll see if you're right. And if you what you say in the actual messenger or over the phone conversation, however you do it, or email or whatever it is, if you say it that's what's different than what's on your copy of this document, and it works, then you edit your document. Because at some point, if you want to hire somebody, they're going to go, hey, what works? and you're going to have to hand them something. And it would be nice if what you handed them wasn't say something like this. It's say these exact words in this exact way. They still might not do it, which that's a whole separate challenge, which they don't like to, but at least it's there. Okay, cool. So that's how you build good stuff. Great. Now we're going to get into some tactical stuff. You guys good so far? I know I'm going fast, and I know we're seriously still just getting into this. Okay. Pipeline workflow. So again, when we talk about pipeline, that funnel that we illustrated earlier, here it is like on its side. Okay. So this is when you have your CRM, this is basically the flow of leads from one stage to the next on its side. Okay. We're talking about workflow, and that's what we're talking about. Great. Productivity. Only have necessary tabs open. I know this sounds silly, but how many of you guys have like way too many tabs open? Look at your Chrome browser right now, whatever you use. Yeah, close all the you're not using. I know this sounds silly. Yeah, I'll close my whatever. Close your Okay, nothing on your desk. Block off time. Get 2 to 3 good fish on the hook. This is just very straight to the point tactical. When we talk about fish on the hook, what I mean is here you are, fisher person, you're casting all these lines. That's what outflow is, outreach. You're casting all these lines. Eventually, there's going to be 1 or 2 little fishies that get hooked. What we don't want to do is we don't want to cast hundreds of lines, have some bites, and can't reel any of them in. That could happen. What we can do is reel in 2, maybe 3 simultaneously. What we don't want to do is, in the name of outflow, keep casting lines when we got, how many of you guys are fishermen? You've fished, or you're aware that fishing is a thing that people do that exists. Great. So when a fish bites on a line, the line goes like this. That's an indicator that you should go over there and start reeling. In other words, they responded to a thing. Now, how fast should we respond to a fish that is pulling on a line? Should we wait? No, we should not wait. We should get over there immediately and start reeling. Why? It's because they'll wriggle off the line. Okay. So speed is very important, which we talked about in the last masterclass. But we get 1 fish on the hook. Great. We got to reel them in. In other words, we got to talk to them while they're on the line, while they're hot. We can't wait. Like immediately, instantly. 14 seconds is too long. Imagine a fish bit on your hook and you just sat there for 14 seconds. 1, 2, 3. So they're gone. That's a long time. So you got to be there instantly. Okay, cool. While you're doing all of this, distractions are going to happen. You want to be 100% focused on reeling these people in. So you want to set your phone to do not disturb. If you're reasonable at this, you should be able to get 5 good sets. If you're really good at this, you should be, when we talk about some tactics on how to get essentially the fish to scatter so that you can reel them all in at once. When you're really good at this, you should be able to book 5 or 6 calls in an hour. If you're a setter, a daily goal for a setter should be 5 or 6 in a day, which is 5 or 6 hours of actual prospecting and conversation work. So as a reminder, if you're like sub 10K a month right now, your only goal is to prospect, have lots of conversations, and get as many calls as you can. That's it. That's really it. And then take their feedback. While you're doing that, they say words and object and say stuff. You document what that is and reinforce the previous workbook, the words that come out of their mouth, so that your marketing gets better, the way you're communicating gets better, and your conversations get better. And if you do that hundreds and hundreds of times, you'll pretty much exhaust all that somebody could give you, in which case your war chest is now built. But that's the only way to build a good marketing war chest, is to talk to your target market, lots of them, constantly, all the time. Okay, that's it. Now, the question you want to ask yourself while you're doing this activity, it's called the big money question. Who is most likely to pay me the most money next? So I might have fish that are on the hook, and one of them is this big, and one of them is this big. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time with this one when this dude is sitting here. This sounds obvious, but holy, I've seen this broken by like everyone ever. Who is most likely to pay me the most money next? That is always the question. Sometimes, again, it's a homeless refugee. Sometimes it's $1 million client. You just keep asking yourself that question, and that answer is where you start hunting. Make sense? Reach out to that person, talk to them, and book them, and then keep asking that question repeatedly. We're going to go into, yes, time allocation. This is money. Everybody, if you weren't already paying attention, pay attention. So the number one rule in terms of time allocation, and really it's really the answer to that question, is where do we start? Well, we start from the money and work our way backwards. So if I already have people that are booked, they're interested, they didn't close yet, I got to follow up and reach out to them first. This is more of a closer thing, but fuck it, you need to know all of this too. So now, if let's say I only had 3 of those and I reached out to all 3, I called them, I DM'd them, I texted them, and I didn't get any conversations, then I move on. Then and I didn't, none of them picked up. Then I move on to people that I've had conversations with that have yet to book a call. Maybe from a previous day, the conversation got lost. Whatever. We're going to go over all the tactics of this. It's all in this huge document. So let's say I only had 10 of those. I said I hit them all up. I said, hey, quick question about our conversation from yesterday, and none of them had responded yet. Then I'm going to move out to people who maybe expressed interest, that are on the fence between interested and having a conversation, and say, hey, I saw you were interested in this thing. Do you still want to have a conversation about it? Again, that's not the script, but that's the idea. And I'm just going to work my way out to eventually people that are totally unaware. And this would be like cold outreach. This would be, we'll get in here, this would be warm. This would be hot. So the lead heat is hotter towards the money and colder as you work your way out. You don't want to, at first you have to start here to gain some awareness if nobody knows who you are. And you're going to have some people that go through this process. They're going to have some people that move through here. So you scare some people up by doing either cold outreach, you do some value videos, you add value like we talked about in the previous part of this, and we've talked about this whole time. You do the stupid simple sales system. That gets a bunch of people aware, some of those interested, some of those have conversations. And if you do that enough times, you'll get people that are right on the fence down here. And when now you have all these fish that you've scared up, now you have to close them starting from here and working your way back. Does this make sense? So it's a constant process. Especially if you're a solo person, in the beginning, it's a balance between, we got to do enough of this so that we get this conversion all the way down to here, but we can't neglect the people down here. We got to then work our way back up. And it's this constant process of adding more in the funnel and then cleaning it up from the bottom up. This is where as a general rule, if I'm booking 5 calls a day, to get a little practical here, if I'm booking 5 calls a day, which if you do the stupid simple sales system, you don't need anything else other than what I've given you to do this. If you're booking 5 calls a day and you're doing, who knows, whatever your conversion rates are, you send 10 of those value packages, 5 of them book with you. Great. That's maybe 5 or 6, maybe 7 hours a day. The rest of the time, you're basically dealing with the fallout from that, working your way back up. But you keep the consistent 5 a day going no matter what, until you have so many people down here that which is great because you're probably crushing it at that point. You have so many people that are signing up for your stuff that you don't have time to do this anymore. And that's when we can start to talk about hiring. To be clear on, we haven't directly talked about full-on pricing stuff, have we? Talked about price? No. As a general rule, you should be charging at least $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for your first 25 people that you work with, no matter what it is. It's just you have to blow their minds. The reason is the economics don't make sense and the business is not viable if you charge less than that, which in every industry it's very possible, but that's not what this lesson is about. So my point is, in the beginning, you got to basically learn how to think through a pipeline because you only have time and energy to spend. So we got to spend it efficiently. So we got to scare up some fish, and then we got to take the ones that are biggest on the hook first, second biggest on the hooks next, and then keep casting lines along the way. I know that's a lot. Welcome to business. It's not easy. But when you learn how to think through this, you'll have second nature of, I know this person's going to book. I just know. Anybody ever had that experience where you just knew somebody was going to close? Yeah, you start to get a feeling for that, but that's only after a lot of doing this. You won't be able to get a second nature feeling unless you do a lot of something. Okay. Does this make sense? Was that reasonably clear? Yeah, okay, great. This is basically a nitty-gritty breakdown of all of that. I'm not going to read everything on here, but this literally breaks down the role. So I'll zoom out a lot here. So closer, setter, how to spend your time working backwards. This is what stage of the funnel they're at. This is the definition of the funnel stage. This is the goal, what we're trying to do. So for example, at the stage of cold prospecting, let's do that. At the stage of cold prospecting, our goal is to give them our free resources and get them into our system as a new lead. Once they become a new lead at this time of creating this, the goal was to get them to join our group. Once they join the group, the goal is to get them in a conversation. Once they're in a conversation, the goal is to qualify them and book them. Once they're booked, the goal is to hand them off to the closer with rapport and get them to confirm. Once they're due, it's to get them to show. You see, when it's the goal of each stage, okay? And this is what to do, what order to do it, the channel. This was for us internally. You can alter this to make it your own, but this is literally the roadmap of how to spend time in a sales process. I'm not going to read every single piece of this. Daily activities. If you have a team, you should be doing team meetings every morning with setters and closers. Setting activities in order of importance. There we go. We want to confirm today's calls. If there's a setter and a closer, that's a different dynamic, which we'll get to in the scripty section. But you want to confirm today's calls first. The first thing that you do in the morning is you confirm the calls. That's your money on it. If you have 5 calls that are booked, they said, yep, I'll be there. You want to make sure of that before you do anything else. You don't want to get to, oops, I forgot to confirm this person, and it's 5 minutes before the call, and then they don't show, and now you're sitting there for 15 minutes waiting. That's a horrible use of time. I know you guys have ever experienced this. You liars. All of you have. I have. Then you want to confirm tomorrow's calls. We'll get into the actual tactics of confirming later, but we want to then follow up with mid bookings, meaning you were in the process of selecting it. So they're like, yeah, let's chat. Oh, cool. What's your schedule later this week? And they're like, oh, Friday seems good. Cool. I got a 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. And they're like, oh, I didn't get back to that. You want to follow up with those people first, right? Then continue conversations with initial leads. Then check and reply to what we do is, anybody not know what a 2-step is? What a 2-step post is? Okay, cool. So those are the posts where you'll see people be like, hey, I just built this guide. Who wants it? Comment below. That would be a 2-step post. First step is posting it. Second step is booking the person who commented. Okay, we're going to get into that as a tactic, but this is just the order with which to respond to stuff. Then if you have a group, approve members, then it's send warm outreach to new group members, or in the case of, for example, the stupid simple sales system, it would be confirm today's calls, confirm tomorrow's calls, follow up with mid bookings, continue conversation with initial leads, check and reply any people who responded to the actual video itself. And then from there, I would move on to just doing more of the awareness and value videos. Okay. So this is really meant for once you have a full-on system built, but then it's send warm outreach to, so this is send warm outreach to new group members, then send warm outreach to old group members, and then cold prospecting. So this is just a different way of ordering the hierarchy that's pretty much illustrated above here that I've done my best to beat into your heads. End of day, important. You don't just stop. Remember, we need a feedback loop. So we got to self-diagnose where you can improve. So if you have a no set, a no show, or a no close, we want to figure out what the happened. Meaning you said, hey, let's chat. And they were like, nah, you, or some version of that. We want to find out why, which I'll walk you through how. But if you have a call with somebody and they don't close, you got to find out why, and then do whatever you have to figure out what you're going to do next time that occurs so that you can be prepared and script it and be ready for it. That's how you get confident doing this stuff. Just hope that somehow your non-objection handler handles it next time. It won't, I promise you. Okay, the top 1% do this. It takes work, energy, effort to be successful. The bottom 90% are too tired, too lazy, and too unresourceful. I wrote all of this training live while I was training my setters over the years. Just like setters, I'm sure you too get tired, lazy, and unresourceful. Great, everybody. Yeah, fantastic. Cut that out. This is, again, made for setters in an organization, but I have my setters submit for my review or whoever's managing the setters. So before you submit something, if you're a setter, you want to review it yourself, go through our resources and try to find the problem and diagnose it yourself. Before you ask me a question, figure out the answer for yourself. Here's a hint to actually get help from somebody is if you ask a question, I don't care what the promise was of like, oh, you said you'd answer all my dumb questions. Like I will, but all it does is train you to rely on me as the resource, thus disempowering you. So if you want to be disempowered, sure, I'll answer your questions, but you're going to be screwed. Okay. So before you ask a question to anyone, especially the higher up you get, if I reached out to one of my mentors and I asked them something that I could have easily found the answer on myself, they will no longer talk to me. They just won't. It's a very noob thing to do. Don't do it. So when you submit for review, you just want to set it up to where the person reviewing it actually is prepared. Like it's easy for them to review it. So same thing we talked about asking questions. Don't ask questions with 14 paragraphs and a question mark at the end that doesn't actually ask a question. That's not a question. Okay. So if you're asking me, for example, in Kevlar, if you want to submit something for an audit, we have very explicit instructions. Don't submit something that's going to take me 90 minutes to figure out what the you're asking. I'm not going to do it. And I'm probably going to kick you out if you keep doing that. Okay. So you want to make it easy, always easy for the end user. Okay. And update the CRM and stuff like that. And again, this is all mainly built for setters, but end of day report. It's good to do this before you even hire a setter. Be your own setter. And through Teddy, we have it set up to where if you submit an end of day report as yourself, as the setter, when you go and hire setters and they're like, I don't want to do my end of day report. Well, you go, I've done the end of day report as my own setter for the last year. Here's the proof. You can't be asking your team to do anything that you're not willing to do yourself. It does not work. Congruency. Great. So again, gotta see. Okay, when you're logging metrics, all metrics that you're logging are new metrics except for rebookings. Okay, so when you talk about new booked call versus somebody who booked and rescheduled 3 times, they don't get logged as a new call every single time when you're logging through an end of day report or through Teddy and you're tracking this stuff. You can't book the same person 15 times in a row in one day and call it 15 booked calls. Common sense, you'd hope. So how to improve? Review your own, review other team members' stuff, get on a hot seat in Kevlar, have me review your stuff, submit for an audit in Kevlar, have me review your stuff, practice, ask questions, be present, very basic stuff. Common pitfalls. Okay, time allocation, spending too much time with the wrong people. We discussed that. Don't spend time on skinny little fish unless that's the only fish in your pond, in which case I would advise you spend some of your time looking for a different pond. Not getting back to prospects messages fast enough. Should be instant. Don't AI yourself. You won't be able to make an AI thing or train an AI thing. I don't care if you copied and pasted it from the guru who told you this was going to be your magical setting cure. You're not going to know if it's any good or where the bottleneck is if you don't first understand how to do this yourself. Okay. You should be sitting there. Here's the hint. You should be sitting there watching their little message bubbles populate. The little thing that shows up that's like that. You should be watching that happen. If you don't see that happening, you're not on top of it enough. Messaging. Pay attention. Everybody, turn up your hearing aids. We do not want to type paragraphs. Stop that now, including in our group, in a group chat, any post that you make, any question you ever ask me. Stop with the paragraphs. Make it easy for them to read. I'll give you examples, but just don't do that. If you find yourself typing and you're like, would I read this? No, you wouldn't. I guarantee it. Then not being clear with questions. We're going to go through exactly how to ask questions, but this would be asking compound questions. As an example, many of you guys do this on calls like this. You ask a question that leads into another question that leads into another question, and I don't know what the you're actually asking for. And then I have to ask you, what was your question? I don't get it. As soon as, remember, confused prospects don't buy, confused prospects don't book. So if you confuse them, it's all the more reason for them to bail. So we want to be very fast, concise, and to the point, and set them up for a good experience. Nobody has a good, how many of you guys have had an amazing experience reading, you open your messages and you see an essay? Anybody have a great experience and say, thank God you sent me more reading material? Not only more reading material, but it's not like you're reading something you want to read. Your reading material is a disjointed, confusing, haphazard, horrible grammar. Thanks for sending me this. Appreciate the value, you moron, is what you're thinking. That's what they're thinking when you do that too. Don't do that. So what you want to say is things like, gotcha, nice. I'm wondering if you might be able to elaborate a little bit more on what you mean when you say, for example, bold in every, people would come to us and be like, I just want to be more bold in every decision. Cool. Can you elaborate on what you mean when you say you want to be bold in every decision? What does that look like for you? That would be clear. When you say, okay, and just so I have a clear picture on this, could you elaborate just a bit around what you're experiencing that shows you don't already have that unshakable confidence? What the fuck does that mean? And that was copied and pasted from one of my setters' conversations. Would you know how to answer that? I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Be clear. Okay. Jumping back and forth between questions. This happens a lot too. Hey, where do you live? I live here. By the way, what is this thing? What is your challenge? This is my challenge. Oh yeah, I used to live there too. Don't do that. It's confusing. Okay. You can save that back and forth type of for a call if you really must. But even then, be very clear. Getting frustrated with the prospect. If you get frustrated with the prospect, it's because you fuck something up. It's not because they're an idiot. I would say maybe there's a 1% chance it's because they're an idiot. And don't be like, this is part of the 1%. It's not. You don't have enough experience or judgment to know whether it's part of the 1% or not. Your decision, your judgment capabilities and your judgment decisions until you're doing 100K a month, you have no second nature on any of this stuff. So just follow these rules and you'll be successful. Don't trust your gut on sales sucks right now. That's okay. It'll get better unless you don't follow these rules. I had a setter who just kept saying brother and bro all the time and saying, don't do that stuff. Unnecessary. Don't ask them to diagnose themselves. What is it that about your thing that's causing you to not be able to do that? Don't do, if they knew that answer, they would already have solved the problem. They don't know. That's why they're there. The doctor never goes, what do you think it is? Your trust in that doctor is going to plummet. Okay. And don't just send material. When they're like, can you just send me some material? Don't go, oh, sure. You get interested. What kind of material specifically are you looking for? Which insinuates that they have a problem, in which case you can unpack that problem and agitate the pain to get them to book a call. We're going to break down how to do that, but just these are what not to do's. Okay, this is specific stuff for Facebook Messenger. For when you're sending new messages, there's a Facebook Messenger app versus like in the browser. Use that instead of the browser. For nurturing messages, use the messenger.com. We use Group Track CRM. It's been good, but I'm sure there's other cool. The purpose here is not to go into softwares. The purpose here is just fundamentals. When using Facebook Messenger, and really honestly everywhere, don't just copy and paste. That's just lazy. Everybody knows when they're getting copied and pasted, and you can feel it. It's the energy behind it. So the energy with which the messages are received is the same energy with which the messages are sent. So if you're sending the messages in the background with half-assed energy, they will be received in the background with half-assed energy. Well, nobody's interested. That's because you're not interested. And if you care, get interested. If you don't, quit. Let's see. Yeah, sounding overly formal. Don't sound overly formal. Good evening. Like, just just be conversational, but don't be an idiot. Okay, we're gonna go over examples of this. Let's see. If you have a team, have your setters do outbound calling and messenger, not just one or the other. If you have anybody on, and this starts with you too. If you're like, I only do messages, I don't want to do calls, or I only do it this way. You don't have the luxury of that choice. And so if you want prima donna setters and closers that only take inbound sets from Instagram leads on Tuesdays between 10 and 10:15 a.m., then set those stupid rules for yourself and watch your bank account dry up. When you're doing outbound dials and sets specifically, this is on both messenger and phone, again, you want to sell the call. You don't want to sell your thing or yourself. You want to sell what's going to happen on the call. And even if you're setting for somebody else, like one of my setters, if they're booking a call, for example, a closer that's not me, I don't want them selling me. I'm not the one they're going to get a call with. I want to sell the value of the call. The call is the product that we're selling. So on this call, we're going to do this thing that's beneficial for you. Doctor, an example, call a doctor's office. They're going to be like, okay, great, understood all your problems. But what we're going to do is we're going to set you in for an appointment. We're going to discover exactly what's causing the problem. We're going to do all these tests. And by the end of it, you're going to know exactly what's causing the problem. And the doctor's going to be able to probably give you a solid game plan. Now that appointment is valuable. They don't go, you know what, I think there was this new medicine that just came out that I think you should get. They don't do that. They sell the value of the appointment. They don't even sell the value of the doctor. They don't go, Dr. So-and-so knows exactly what he's doing. He's the best in the business. He has all these accolades. You don't give a about that. You just want your pain gone. And the only way to get the pain gone is get the diagnosis. The only way to get the diagnosis is at the appointment. Just so happens there happens to be an award-winning doctor. That's awesome. That's why I'm booking with you. But I don't care. I'm not showing up because the doctor's good. I'm showing up so that I can figure out what's wrong and solve it. Very important distinction. And also tying down. We're going to go over the script of tying down, but it's essentially, you can't just be like, cool, see you tomorrow at 2. They don't know. Like, you don't know if they're going to show up. We used to do a thing. I'll tell you a quick story. This is tying down. This is where I learned tying down. The first thing that I ever sold was Cutco kitchen knives. Anybody ever heard of Cutco kitchen knives? Sold a lot of those little things. What they had us do, this was actually before, it was in 2007. This was before, really right on the cusp of like phone GPS, but we didn't have phone GPS. So legit, like we were calling the Mrs. Joneses of the world. And when we booked the appointment, they're like, yep, okay, cool. See you Saturday at 2. Great, Mrs. Jones, before we hang up, there's one thing real important. I want to make sure that I got your address, but I want to make sure that I understand exactly how to get to where you're at. I'll be coming from here, road name. Could you just give me the turn-by-turn instructions on how to get there? Oh, sure. First, you go here, you exit here, you're going to come to a fork in the road. You take a left, you're going to see a Wendy's. You stop at light at the Wendy's, you turn right, and then and they're going to go all the way to their door. Now, what you're doing when that happens is they're visualizing you driving to their appointment. They're visualizing you coming to the house, and that which we visualize manifests. They're now picturing it happening. It's real now. You've essentially in their mind already driven to their house and the appointment's already happening. I know how to get to a house. I had a less MapQuest at that time, and I'm not an idiot. I know how to get there, but you still do it. Now it gets better. Say, Mrs. Jones, thank you so much. Real quick, before we hang out, do me a favor, grab a pen and a piece of paper. Let me know when you're ready. Okay. Now I got to make sure she's got it. How many of you guys have ever asked somebody to do something on the phone and they're like, yeah, I'm ready. Like instantly, or you're like, you didn't grab a pen and a piece of paper, call them out. Say, all right, cool. Let me know when you're ready. This is very important information that you're going to need during our appointment. Oh, okay, hang on. And you hear them rustling around now. They got it. Great. Write down, my name is John Whiting, JohnWhiting. My phone number is this, and I'm going to be coming to see you at this date, at this time, and say it all out. And then there's a little trick. We gave them our rep number. Say there's an important number that you're going to need at this appointment. It's 323-727-08. Great. Now repeat all that back to me, Mrs. Jones. I just want to make sure you got it right. Now she's got it written down. She's repeated it back to you. She's visualized you coming to the house and say, Mrs. Jones, real quick, I really appreciate your help with this appointment. It was framed as you're helping me towards a college thing. I really appreciate you helping me, but I also understand your time is incredibly valuable. Would you do me a favor? Is there any chance that anything could come up? Is there any chance that won't be a good time? No. Cool. Understood. So to be clear, we're here. Repeat it back again. Now, will you do me a favor? And if anything comes up at all, you call my cell phone number and just let me know. That's tying down. Okay. That's after they already agreed. That's tying down. I never had a single no-show. And to be very clear, I forget the exact, but there was like 45 or 55,000 reps throughout the country at that time. I was number 2 during a particular summer. I never had a no sale and I never had a no show. And my average order value was about 6 times the company average. Now, I don't say that to brag. I just say that because all I did during that sales training, and I had never sold shit in my life. I was fresh out of high school and my mom said, you're going to this interview and you're going to get a job. She circled the in a paper. That's what happened. Okay. So I go to this interview and then I saw the comp plan and I'm like, I might be able to do this. And all I did, the manager said, is if you do what I tell you to do, you can make that money. And I'm like, that sounds cool. I was like the only person who actually just verbatim did exactly what I was told to do. Exactly. Everyone else decided to tweak it, freestyle, and do whatever they wanted to do. I just did what worked. So what I'm sharing with you in this is not just a tie down little lesson, but I'm giving you the recipe. If you don't do it, that's on you. Okay. Everybody good with that? So that, when we're talking about tying down, that's tying down. How many of you guys believe that if you added some sort of a tie down to your appointment bookings, that you'd have a better show rate? Holy, if I sell you on the value of the call and I tie you down, you're probably going to show. Great. Communication basics. You guys doing good so far? I know I'm going incredibly fast, fire hose. You guys are champions. I love it. This is important too. All of this is incredibly important. Communication is like a ping pong match, back and forth. Imagine waiting 5 whole seconds before making it back to the before hitting it back to the opponent. How many of you guys think that would be a very fun ping pong match to have? You hit it and they wait 5 minutes. Is that fun? No, it's not fun. You would leave. In fact, you would think the other person is a moron. This is how communication works. You need to set up the other person to make it easy for them to hit the ball back. Make it easy for them. This is a ping pong match that you want them to be able to hit it back. You're not trying to spike a stumper on them, okay? You're not trying to throw them off. You're trying to give them lobs. Make it easy for them to hit it back. Make them feel like they're winning. So when you send long paragraphs and confusing, disjointed, that's not easy for them to hit back. They got to decipher what language you just spoke, and it's going to take them a while to do it. So don't do that. Make it easy for them. Outflow, inflow, quick, fast, speed, back and forth. Great. Ask yourself, how would I feel and reply, if at all, if I received the communication from a message or phone statement question? If I was this person, if I got what I just said or sent, what would I do? Really? And if you're wondering, look back at conversations that you've had when people have said something similar and look at what did you do? Most likely, you ghosted that person who sent you the 12-paragraph Instagram DM about how you can grow your social media. That's what you do. That's what they're going to do too. So don't do that. Nobody wants to read anything. Not even you guys. You're here. You don't even want to be here right now. You just want to sit back, do nothing, and collect money. I got it. Here we are. So knowing that is human nature. Humans don't want to do shit. So the more you make them do or think or brain power that you make them use, all you're going to do is piss them off. So be as brief as possible and use as little words as possible and simplest words as you possibly can. Like you're talking to a 3-year-old without being condescending. So the goal again is to assume the role of doctor and gather their symptoms. When you do this, the diagnosis becomes a wait for it call. Based on what you've shared with me, the only way that I can possibly help you the most is if we get on a chat, because I got to run right now and I need to learn more before I can give you exactly what to do about the situation. I'm going to give you the script on that, which leads me into the general setting process. Gather context, frame the conversation in their own best interests, probing questions, feedback, lock in a call, follow up if they ghost. There's some softeners and preframes. So this is incredibly important, especially when we sold very specifically our very in-depth one-on-one, basically mental clearing thing. Like we're dealing with like heavy emotional, which means heavy emotional problems, which means some of the questions can be sensitive, potentially jarring or upsetting for people, very specifically for our offer. And when somebody's in pain about something, they're probably not thrilled about it and probably don't feel great about it. So you want to soften your questions a little bit. So when you put things in front of sentences like, I'm curious, I'm wondering then, well, if you don't mind me asking, would you mind telling me, just so I can understand further, just so I can point you in the right direction, can you help me understand? Hypothetically speaking, real quick, when you put that in front of a question, it softens it. Versus if I said, hey, James, what's your biggest guilty pleasure? Out of the gate, you'd be like, why the that's a bit aggressive. But if I said, I'm curious, James, based on what you just shared with me, just so I can understand further your situation, we all have guilty pleasures. I'm curious, what is your biggest guilty pleasure? Same question. I used a few softeners. You can add them together, use them in context and make it make sense. But it softens the blow and gets them to open up. You want them to open up. Imagine going to the doctor's office, right? Imagine you're the doctor. You have a patient comes in and he says, I have a problem with my nether regions. Why they use that language, I don't know. My butt hurts. Great. Take your pants off. I don't want to. I can't diagnose you if you don't. That's where that conversation would go. And then they'd either leave or you'd coerce them to take their pants off professionally, of course. So it'd be like, I understand it's uncomfortable. We all deal with these things sometimes, but in order for me to really thoroughly help you, I need to really see the problem. So would it, just so I can understand further the situation, it only stays between you and I. What's the real deal going on here? Oh, okay, doc, cool. Pants off. Great. And that's how you get somebody's pants off. So while we're asking questions, there's three types of questions. There's item questions, there's expansion questions, and there's clarifying questions. Item questions. The goal of an item question is to get clear on an item, which is an individual article or unit, especially one that is part of a list, collection, or set. So this could be things like items in this room would be a chair, a couch, a table, a desk. Those would be items. So if you asked me, what is in your office? Those that you're looking for an item. Does this make sense? In other ways, this could be things like when we're talking about like our mental clearing thing, I'm looking for what are your biggest challenges? That's a pretty broad. So we'd ask something like, if you could change one thing about your mindset, what would you change? And they would maybe ramble on about a thing sometimes. Doesn't really give me the item. So I might say, we built this office. If you asked me that same question, you'd say, what's in your office? And I said, I designed this office. I built this office. I really like this office. It's fun. I had other offices, but did we get the item of what's in the office? No, we did not. So I'm looking for an item. And when you're asking an item question and you don't get an item answer, you got to know, and you got to not move on until you get the item. And so when we ask if you could change one thing about your mindset, your business, your body, your relationship, whatever, what would you change? Usually you'll get answers like, I want more this, I want to eliminate that, I want better this, I want less that. And if they struggle to answer the question, we want to feed them with a few multiple choice options. If they start rambling or give you anything other than an item, first you got to know that you're looking for an item, what kind of answer you're looking for. Next, you got to recognize whether or not you got it. If you didn't get it, say, yeah, don't worry about that. Usually, sometimes people say more this, we want to eliminate that, better this, less that. So we would say things. Sometimes people say they want more focus, they want to perform better, they want less fear, less doubt, they want to be more confident, stuff like that. Is there anything like that you would change if you could? Oh, yeah. And jogs their memory. We can feed them list items. But we want to do that secondarily because I want their exact what's on the top of their mind. I don't want to feed them a problem, but if I have to. This is incredibly nuanced. This might even be an advanced section, but it's here. And it's important because if it was James, because I know your business, like if you could change one thing about your branding, what would you change? And they were like, I grew up in Ohio. That's not an item that they would change about their branding. So you got to be like, cool about your Ohio thing, but usually people say things like my logo or my colors, my fonts, my whatever, like that. Oh, cool. Yeah, definitely my logo. Really, what don't you like about your logo? Now we can go into an expansion question. And the goal of an expansion question is to get them to tell you more or expand on the item so you can get leverage and get them more invested in the conversation so you have more rapport and closing ammunition. So it's one thing to be dissatisfied with your logo. It's another thing to be dissatisfied with your logo for a very important reason. Everybody's got a very important reason for the item that they say. We got to find out everything we can about that. So guy says, I have pain in my leg. Okay, cool. Here's a cast. Would be a horrible way to handle that as a doctor. Really, tell me about the pain in your leg, is what he would say. Where is it? Is it a sharp pain? Is it a dull pain? Is it bleeding? When did it start? Those are all expansion questions. We say, what makes you say that? What do you mean by that? Would you mind telling me a bit more about what you mean by I want to change my logo? I'm curious, what makes you say you want to change your logo? In what way would you like to change your logo? Why is your current logo a problem? Why is it important to you to change your logo? What exactly is occurring with your logo that says makes you want to change it? What's going on there? What are you experiencing with your logo situation exactly? Those are all expansion questions. Great questions to ask. And if they struggle to answer the question, say, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just tell me a little bit more about your logo thing. I might have some thoughts for you. This, that, and the other. Oh, okay, cool. Finally, clarifying questions. The goal of a clarifying question is the act of making a statement or situation less confused or more comprehensible. So if they say, oh, I really changed my logo, it's because of my team. What do you mean by that? Okay, cool. We got to ask, I'm unclear, because of your team. People they do this. You've probably done it. I'm sure I've done it. We've all done it. Is they take a script. They say, what would you change? I'd change my logo. Why? My team. Oh, great. I have some thoughts for you. Let's book a call. Doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't, why would you change a logo because your team? I need more information here before I can even know what to do next. Is this person a lunatic? Your team disagreed with it? Like, I got to know more about why that's the problem before I go and pitch a solution. And the only reason, at least I believe, that you aren't able to catch like that, which I'm amazed that this is a problem, but I just believe it's because people are multitasking. They're lazy. They don't give a shit. They don't care about the prospect enough to be present enough to notice. I've reviewed sales calls where legitimately this happened. Okay. And this happens in sets too. Sets and sale, all a set is a sales call is a sales situation to sell a call. And then the sales call is a sales situation to sell a product. Same situation. Okay. I've reviewed sales calls from people where the person says, hang on, a question was asked like, oh, you have a dog? No, I don't have a dog. 15 minutes later, a dog's barking and the prospect goes, hang on, I have to let my dog out. And the salesperson goes, oh, okay. I thought you said you didn't have a dog. Oh, no, I was watching I was watching the dog for a neighbor. Oh, got it. So it's not your dog. No, it's not my dog. Okay. I thought, because I know earlier you said you didn't have a dog and now a dog's barking, but that makes sense. Okay. That would be clarifying. Most people are afraid to like, what do I do? Dog's barking, but he said he didn't have a dog. I guess I just followed the script, and they freeze up. Like, what the just be present, just be present with the person and help them. Okay. How many of you guys have experienced something like this? Anybody? Holy, all you got to do is just be present and listen to people. It's amazing. Okay. So I might have missed it, but you said you didn't have a dog. Is that whose dog is that? I might have missed it, but when you were talking about the office, I get where you built it, but what the fuck is in it was my question. Maybe a little less aggressive than that, but you get my point. I might have missed it, but how does this relate to what we're talking about? This would be the Ohio thing. What do you only like about your logo? Oh, I grew up in Ohio. I might have missed, I'm sure you said it, but how does that have to do with your logo? Oh, it doesn't actually. What I didn't like about my logo was this. Clarifying question. And you got to spot it, and you can't be afraid to go like, oh no, should I say it? Yes, you should, because you're human and you heard words that contradict or don't agree with the conversation. So say words. I don't know how else to teach it. I've tried a lot of reviews. You can tell that I'm thrilled with all of them, but I've literally tried to hit that one from all of the sides possible. And I don't know, some people just weren't meant to be successful. I don't know. Okay. Acknowledgements. This is incredibly important. How many of you guys have ever been in a conversation? You said something and somebody just went off talking about something else and never said, got it. I understand. Thank you for sharing. You're just like, oh, I'm from Ohio. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. They don't even say, oh, okay, cool. See, I by default acknowledge. You're like, oh, I'm from Ohio. Let's go get some lunch. How does that make you feel? Like it makes you feel unheard. It makes you feel unimportant. It makes you feel like the other person is just waiting to say whatever that they were going to say because you're so unimportant, especially if they're sharing some here's what's bothering me type information with you and you don't acknowledge it. Somebody opens up their heart. You know what? I'm confessing my love for you. Let's go to lunch. That is very invalidative. You got to acknowledge it. So here's how to do it. And the reason I built this stuff is because this is literally all from setters that I've managed and ran over the years. Okay. I'm surprised I had to make this, but we made this and we're going over it. So when a prospect says something, we need to acknowledge it before we ask a follow-up question. The acknowledgement must match what they said. For example, okay, If they're sharing a win or something good that happened, for example, we just had a record month, or I just got a puppy, you say, congrats, awesome, or nice. You don't say, gotcha, I'm sorry to hear that, or okay. I just got a puppy. I'm sorry to hear that is not the correct acknowledgement. I just had a record month. Gotcha. I've literally seen this hundreds of times. It's amazing. And then, again, the only, I think, cause of this is just you're not paying attention. You don't give a fuck. So if you give a shit, you'll know this automatically. I'm amazed that I had to make this, but this is comical to go over. Neutral events, when they shared something that wasn't obviously something that they're perceiving as positive or negative, or it's an existing condition. For example, we're currently in the process of hiring a setter, or I procrastinate a lot. Say, gotcha, okay, understood, cool, I appreciate you sharing that. You don't say, congrats, awesome, nice, I'm sorry to hear that's too bad, that sucks. Pretty simple. If they say something that's obviously a negative event, my grandma died, we just got sued. Say, oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. My condolences. That's tough. That's not uncommon. I appreciate you sharing that. You don't say, congrats. Awesome. Nice. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Understood. My grandma just died. Gotcha. No, my grandma just died. Understood. My grandma just died. Cool. Also not okay. We just got sued. Congrats. Not okay. We just got sued. Okay. We just got sued. Understood. Holy, I can't believe I have to teach this, but how many of you guys ever seen somebody fuck this up? I've only seen it hundreds of times. Okay. Buying signs. It's a good sign when a prospect is asking things like, what do you do? How do you get result? Tell me about your programs. How can you help me? We call this reaching. And those who are reaching have a higher probability of having the means to do something. And keep in mind, in a setting situation, when somebody says, tell me about your programs, we'll get into the scripting of this, but you don't go, oh, here's about my programs. Wrong, flunk, fail, stop. What you do is, I'd be happy to, but everything that we do is tailored to the person that we work with. And I'm not sure if I have enough information right now to tell you about I want to just make sure I tell you about the right program, and telling you about all the that we can do would take. What might be a better idea is to jump on a quick call so I can thoroughly understand where you're at, where you want to go, and see even if one of our programs will be a fit for you. Does that sound fair? Don't pitch your shit. What do? We help people get this thing. How do you do that? Depends. Before I share with you exactly how, though, I'd like to get a little bit more information. Again, being interested is, they're going to ask you questions to try to make you be interesting, and you're going to want to do it real bad. You're going to want to tell them all the cool shit you can do. Don't do that ever. The only time you tell them what you do and exactly how you do that is during the pitch in an actual sales call, after you've gathered all the information you possibly can in discovery, which we're going to handle, I believe, that part in 2 weeks, very in depth like this. It's the only time you actually pitch your. Okay. There's a pitch pocket. You might have heard it is called the buyer's pocket. And that's a time when a lead is prepped and ready to be pitched. You'll get a better idea of when they're in this buyer's pocket or a pitch pocket, the more of this that you do. But here's an analogy. When you're dating, how many of you guys have ever dated someone? Hands up, everybody. Fantastic. Gabe, never? Raise your hand, Gabe. There you go. Thank you. So when you're dating and the outcome you are optimizing for is to kiss the girl, kiss the guy, whatever. You don't show up on the first date and immediately go for the kiss. You don't do that. You also don't wait until the fourth date, perhaps. Depends. But as a general rule, everybody, this isn't dating class, it's just an analogy. Everybody relax. You don't immediately go in for the kiss. You also don't wait maybe until the fourth year. It's too long. So there's too soon and too late. And somewhere in there is the sweet spot, right? So there is a time where you have gotten to know her and she is already expecting you to lean in and close the deal. How many of you guys have ever been in this pocket and you nailed it right on the head? And it was, how many of you guys have ever been a little bit too soon? How many of you guys have ever been a little bit too late? There is a perfect time. Same goes for pitching a call. Same goes for pitching a product. You'll know, just like you know when to go in for the kiss or when to take their pants off or whatever it is that you do. There's a time and a place. You got to know when that is, and you only know when that is by up quite a bit. I've done my best to give you frameworks to know how to spot it, but if it feels like it's a little early, it might be, or it might not be. I don't know. Try it. There's lots of people on the planet, and as long as your total addressable market, which is why the audience training is so important, is big enough, you have people to go through. And as long as you're not an and you're not rude about it, you could probably go back and recover that deal and get the buyer's pocket or the pitch pocket or the kiss pocket back. Anybody ever been in a relationship where they went a little bit too early or too late and it was awkward, but then later you recovered it and finally it happened and it was good? I've had that happen. So it's recoverable. Sales is dating. Dating is sales. All the same rules apply. If you're out on a date and the other person goes, my grandma just died, you don't go, gotcha. Date over. Okay. It's the same thing. You're dating. That's all this is, dating. Great. We're almost getting to the actual script, but do you guys see how important all of this preamble stuff is? Because I could give you the script and you're going to fuck up. You're going to fuck up anyway, I guarantee you. But you need to know all this stuff. Be fast. We already talked about this. Be present. We already talked about this. I don't need to beat this to death. Be empathetic, meaning understand and share the feelings of another. Be clear, be intentional, be concise, be responsible. When I say be responsible, it's if a prospect is ghosting you, if a prospect objects, if a prospect gets pissed, it's probably because of you. It's not because of them. Don't blame them. It's you. Even if it is them, you decided to reach out to them. You decided to say certain words. You should have known. That's your response to everything. You should have known. Just assume that's the truth because you should have. You should have you should have bought my years ago. It's my responsibility that I didn't market to you in the right way years ago. Sorry. You're here now though, but that's full responsibility. So take full responsibility. Own your communication and provide them value. Be strategic. Ask questions in an increasing order of difficulty. You do not open with, hey, how much money do you make? In no circumstances can I think of that does that make any sense. In a dating scene, in a business scene, asking somebody how much money they make, what their religion is, how big their nipples are, whatever. Like those are challenging questions to start with, okay? We want to ask questions in increasing order of difficulty or intimacy, okay? We want to match and mirror. This is incredibly important too. We want to adapt to the prospect's language patterns, not condescendingly, but if somebody uses a lot of exclamation points, and we want to use some exclamation points. If somebody, and this is in DM stuff, but also on the phone as well. If somebody answers the phone and says, hey, how's it going? You don't go, pretty good. How are you? You don't do that. You're fine. You go, hey, I'm pretty good. How are you doing? Like you got to match, and then you can guide them into an actual conversation. If they use all caps, use some all caps. If they say, what's up, dog? You might say, what's up, dog, back. If they say, sup, dog, and you go, hello, sir, good evening, greetings, you're going to lose rapport, okay? Your job is to basically be so in their universe that you basically get them to see you as a mirror of them. They will like you. They will think that they're like you. They will think if they're like you, that they can probably get the result that you get. But if you do some crazy, like I just outlined, it's going to be really hard for you. Okay. Get context. Confirm where they're coming from before you launch into a set. If somebody came from my YouTube channel versus they were cold emailed, which we don't do, but different context. Somebody, hey, just so I have context, how did you find out about us? No, your YouTube channel. Really? What video did you watch? This video. Really? What did you like about that video that made you want to reach out to me? I like this. That is all very important information. Those are clarifying questions and expansion questions. All of that is good information to have. If I reach out to them and they don't know who I am and it's a cold email and they didn't watch any of my YouTube videos, they don't know who the fuck I am, it's gonna be a way different frame. I have to treat those differently. So there's intent-based context, meaning they raise their hand directly about something. They're like, hey, saw your YouTube video. I wanted to chat because I want to hear about what you do. That is their intent. They have high intent to work with you in some way. They just need to know the details. Yes, I want to learn more about your program. I'd like to speak with somebody about upgrading. I'd like to work with you further. Non-intent based is they didn't directly raise their hand. This would be outbound group. Hey, welcome to the group. Hey, I'm outbounding you with this offer. It's intent-based, non-intent-based. Great. Now we're going to get into the script, and this is going to be the easiest, quickest part of this whole thing because you're going to see how this whole thing goes, and we're going to get to the end of the script, and then we're going to end for the day, and then we're going to we're going to do a little Q&A. Then we're going to go into next week with some nuancy situational. So the home stretch, you guys are doing great. So gain permission is usually a good idea. Would it be okay if I sent you a message? Cool if I message you. So especially if you're doing the stupid simple sales system, they're like, wow, so much insight. Thank you so much. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I actually had a quick question for you. Would it be okay if I DM'd you? Just so we don't clog up this comment feed. Sure. Easy ask because you just added a whole bunch of value. Now, all you're asking is, can I DM you? Easy yes. By the way, in sales, when we stack yes after yes, when we get them, if they said yes to us 36 times in some way, by the time we get them to actually we pitch a program or product or service, the probability that they're going to say yes again, they want to say yes again, mainly because of this thing called confirmation bias. if we've agreed so deep into a process, we are more likely to keep agreeing into that process, because if we disagree at that point, we have to admit that we were wrong about all of the other decisions that we made prior to that. I've already been paying for Netflix for this long. Might as well keep paying for it, because as soon as I cancel, it's like we lost the thing that we've been committing to for years. That's how people think. So the more we can interact with people, the more we can get involved in their universe. If they can open up to us, they pour their heart out to us, they really get honest with us about a problem in the DMs, that we have trust now. And for them not to show, like, they have to like make sure that the person, they can still trust this person, and then they have to show up for this call, and they've already spent an hour with us in some way, shape, or form. So if they bail now, they have to admit that whole thing was a waste of time, and nobody likes to be wrong, which I guess leads me into a side point. Don't ever say anything, which I never put on here, but I should. Don't ever say anything that they could even come close to interpreting as you're wrong, ever. Not once. Even when they say, I f***ed up, you don't go, you sure did, unless you have an incredible amount of rapport. If one of you guys were like, hey, I f***ed this up, I'm like, yeah, you probably did, but hey, that's okay. Because you know I actually give a shit, because you know me at this point, and you like me, hopefully, some of you do, and you trust me enough to at least give you my honest feedback. And that's why you guys are here. If you just met me, I'm not going to be like, dude, you that one up, unless I had a great intro from somebody who had my client Brandon, very famous, Carter, introduces me to somebody, and he's like, John's going to give you two straight, and you only got 5 minutes. That's a time where I can be like, dude, you're not going to know what I have to say, but you up. But it's because of the frame. Okay. It's because of what happened before that. As a general rule, though, what I would try to do is say, it's okay, you didn't fuck anything up, we just need to do this now. Okay. But don't ever like, oh, you're one of those people, you did that stuff, you like any of that, just like, no, fuck you. Like, that's how people think. That's how you think. Nobody likes to be insinuated that you even come close. If you're like, I don't know, they might take this the wrong way, don't say it. Anything that could be defensive, where they're just like, you're approaching me the wrong way, just be like, no, I'm not. No, you don't do that. Oh, what made you say that? We'll handle the nuances again next week. Okay. Frame the conversation in their own best interest. This is where we get permission to ask them questions with preeminence, which is framed in their own best interest, while building the value of whatever our resources are. By this time, if you've gone through all of this, you have a great free conversion content resource thing that you can provide for these people that they may or may not have at this point. If they have it and they reached out for more, that would be intent-based. If you sent it to them impromptu, that would be non-intent-based. Okay. Either way, there's something to talk about that has done some selling for you and some belief shifting for you. Ideally, it's not impossible to sell without that. It's just way easier when you can point them to something. Okay. And we essentially want to give them a clear light at the end of the tunnel. So we want to communicate why. We want to frame the conversation in their own best interest and be warm and inviting. So for example, if you have a group, hey, so-and-so just approved your request to join the group, just so you can get what you came for. Would be okay if I ask you a couple quick questions. I might have some resources for you. We made millions of dollars with that question. So this is why it's very important that when you're posting content, which after the sales part, we're going to go into content. Okay. I just figured it'd be more direct stuff you can do right now to go setting and closing and sales before we go top of funnel content, because that's like a long tail game. But when you are putting out value out there, even if it's just the stupid simple sales system, right, and they respond positively, this is why it's so stupid simple, is because it's hyper targeted. You already know they're qualified, they're already your person, you already added value. When they go, holy, thank you so much, you just go, yeah, so just so I can get a little bit more context about what you do, I might be able to help you even further. Would you be open to me asking just a couple of quick questions about exactly where you're at in your business? I might have some other cool shit for you. Yeah. When they say, no, fuck you, go away, they're not going to do that, right? So that's all we're going to do, is ask permission to ask some questions. Ask probing questions. We're going to discover their current situation, desired situation, perceived challenges, and background information. Remember, everything that we're doing is we're taking person from point A to point B. So point A is current situation, point B is desired situation. Their challenges are what they see getting in the middle of that. And we want to understand a little bit of the context that kind of led to their current situation. All we're trying to do again in sales is move somebody from point A to point B. So this, when you do this, will give you the information that you need to either provide feedback to increase the trust that they're more likely to, so that they're more likely to commit and show up to a sales call, or immediately transition into a sales call. Either way, we need to ask probing questions. This is the doctor saying, pull down your pants. I need to stick my finger in your butt to find out if you got a problem. Probing. Example script. So for example, if this is again written as if they answered group questions or responded to some form in some way or opted into a lead magnet that said name, email, phone, what type of business do you have, or what are your goals, or whatever if you have some context. So in your questions, I saw that you mentioned problem and challenge, and I'm curious if you might be able to elaborate a little bit more on that. What do you mean exactly? If you already have something, or if they responded to a post that said, hey, I'm having a problem with XYZ. You say, I noticed you said you have a problem with XYZ. Would you mind elaborating on that? That's it. You just want them to talk. 80-20. We want 80% them talking, 20% us talking. That's it. We just want to ask a question and let them go. And as long as what they're talking is on subject, if I ask them what's in your office and they start talking about their horse fetish, I'm going to have to redirect them back to the office unless I have a horse fetish solution. But if they're talking about the office and it's very relevant information and they're talking about their problems and what their goals are, I'm just going to let them go, because all of that is leverage. In any negotiation, which all of this is, the person who has more information about the other person has more leverage. A great book is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, as well as, I think, Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. Good books. Long story short, I just gave it to you in one sentence. Get more information about the other person, and you'll have leverage to know how to influence them. If they know more about you than more about them, they will whatever they want every time. Right? Now, if they didn't answer any sort of questions, you have less context to say, hey, for some context, real quick, could you share a little bit about where you're at with situation, with your business? Share me where you're at with your business. Current situation questions. Again, all we're trying to do in current situation is identify this. Current situation questions. You don't have to ask all of these, okay? These are all just suggestions, but tell me a little bit about your subject matter and what you're working on now. I'm gonna leave it. If you're trying to date, tell me a little bit about your dating life right now. What are you trying? What's working? What's not? If you don't mind me asking, just so I can understand exactly what stage you're at, what's your current average monthly revenue? If you're asking a business financial qualification type of a question. If you're asking a financial qualification type of a question to a dating person, say, what do you do for a living? And if they say some title, instead of asking how much does that person make, in another tab, you Google it. If they say I'm a janitor, but I'm a janitor in Qatar at the Four Seasons, they might make six figures. I don't know. Context matters. Okay, gotcha. I'm also curious, if you wouldn't mind me asking, if you could change one thing about your subject matter, what would you change? If you could change one thing about your dating life, what would you change? Get chicks. Okay, cool. What's your biggest challenge getting chicks at the moment? What's the biggest problem that's causing for you right now? I can't get chicks. What's the biggest problem? What's causing me to feel like I feel rejected? I feel like an asshole. Whatever. You want to get that information. Why is that a problem? I don't know. I felt like an asshole and didn't seem like a problem at times. But it seems like it's a problem for you based on what you shared with me. What problem is that causing? Really, it's causing me to not do X, Y, and Z. And then here's the expansion questions that we talked about earlier. And a good question here is, what is the actual problem? What is the actual problem that the problem they told you is causing for you right now? For example, back to the logo thing. My logo sucks. Why is that a problem? Well, it's repelling customers. How do you know? I had this customer say they looked at my logo and said it looked like a penis and they left. Understood. Is that how everyone seems to react? Yeah. Okay. What's the real problem that's causing? Lack of sales. We're losing business left and right because my logo looks like a dick. Good information to know. Why is that important to you? What exactly is occurring when that happens? What's going on there? What are you experiencing? Great. Fine. Financial qualification questions. Now, again, if you don't mind me asking, just so I can make sure to point you in the right direction based on exactly where you are, what is your current average monthly revenue in your business? So this is just so I can, or because. It's called the because frame. When you ask a question without any sort of a frame, it's a risk. But if I say, hey, James, just so I know how to help you the best, how good are you at drawing logos? Whatever, right? It pre-frames the question, right? I need a reason. Otherwise, I'm an asshole. If I just say to a cousin, hey, what are you making last year? That's a rude question to ask at a holiday party. But if I just say, just so I might have some resources for you that we've used in our business, I know you got a business. I'm just curious, what level are you at? Just so I might be able to send you some cool if you're open. Yeah, we're just starting. Okay, just starting as in like you have some customers or you don't have some customers. Like, what are you selling? How much you selling it for? Oh yeah, we have some customers. I got a couple people paying me $5,000 a month. Okay, got it. So you're making around $10,000 a month. Yeah, okay, cool. How long you been at that level? Just for context, this long. Okay, cool. I might have the perfect thing for you. Oh, that's different than how much money you make, douche. That would be not the okay way to ask that question ever, probably in any situation. That's why softeners are important. Depending on what you sell, If you sell to non-business people, it's maybe a little bit more nuanced. Like, what do you do for a living? How long you've been doing that? And you'll have to do some side Googling stuff and you'll get an idea of what people make. And the more people you talk to, you'll know that everyone who says that they're a personal trainer actually is broke. And so you need to create another sort of a financial qualification question. Are you a personal trainer at a gym? You own your own business? Is it an online personal training business? How many customers do you have? What's your business model? You could reverse engineer your way into knowing how much money they make, because if they make no money and they have no money and they have no resources, as a general rule, I probably don't want to set them unless I have literally no other fish on the hook. So remember from last lesson, as a caveat, people, if they want something bad enough, they will do whatever it takes to get it. But I want to set myself up for a higher probability of success and making sure my time is used well. So if you don't mind me asking, what are you currently doing in XYZ? And again, how many clients, how long have you had the job? If they don't answer some sort of a survey that tells you, if they do answer, you mentioned you were doing XYZ a month as this thing on your form. Just to confirm, is that correct? They might have lied. How many of you guys have ever seen somebody lie on a form they filled out? All of you, right? So if I get on a call and you say you're making $8 million a month, but in reality, your keyboard got stuck and you really make $8 a month, I want to clarify before I just assume you're balling hard, right? Says on your form here, you make $8 million a month. Is that true? Oh, no, my keyboard actually broke. It's 8. Oh, got it. And then at which point we'll share how to handle that later. So if unqualified, I would then send them a free resource. Cool. Best place to start is probably all our free. I wouldn't try to set them, point them to the free. If it'll help them, great. They'll come back later. They'll say thanks. And they'll at least say good things and you'll have saved your time. And this is the script. Awesome. What's probably gonna be more helpful for you is if you begin on our free, what email should I use? And then you opt them in manually. Desired situation questions. So we got the current situation. The current situation is the more important one. So you might hear that be said different. I've always found that if people get really well associated with how their situation is, they'll do pretty much anything, especially if they believe that you can help. I just want to get an idea of where they're trying to go because they might be in a situation, but they might like it there. I'm making $8 a month. What's your goal? I want to just get to 9. I can't really help you much. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure if you walked around outside for long enough, you'd find a buck. There's my advice. Move along. So what's your goal for a year? Where do you want to be in X in the next 3 months? How far away are you from that now? We want to establish, this is what's called gap selling. It's the gap between A and B. And the bigger this gap is and the more painful it is, the more likely they are to buy your thing. If they want to go from $8 to $9 and feeling pretty good to pretty better, it's not a really great opportunity. But if they are debilitatingly in pain and they want to feel like they're a teenager again, you got a pretty big gap. Okay. Perceived challenge type questions. What do you think is the biggest challenge getting to XYZ goal? Background information. What have you tried so far? Say they're trying to lose weight. Trying to lose weight. I've tried everything. Really? What's everything? List all the things. I want to know. What have all you tried? How long ago was that? Tell me about what your experiences was. Have you ever hired an XYZ coach? Have you ever bought an XYZ program for that before? Have you ever read an XYZ book around that? What have you done? I'm trying to get what's their timeline? Who did your logo that you currently have that looks like a penis? I did it. Okay. Have you ever worked with a branding agency before? No. Where did you get the idea to draw it as it was actually supposed to be an eggplant? Who knew? Okay. So what have you tried? Why do you think that hasn't fully solved the problem? And this is especially true if they're already they already have an existing solution. Oh yeah, I'm already working with a branding agency. Really? Why do you think they haven't? What have they produced? Nothing. Why do you think they haven't produced that? I don't know. Interesting. What have you paid them? How long ago did you hire them? What the fuck are they doing? I want to understand what's going on. If they've done something in the past and it didn't work, I want to get their understanding as to why. I didn't get enough support. I know for sure when I pitch them on the call, I'm going to be like, you're going to get more support than you know what to do with. And that handles their objection because whatever they've tried in the past and it didn't work, they're going to object to in the future. So I want to know what else did you try? Why do you think that didn't work? What else did you try? Why did you think that didn't work? I'm going to get a whole inventory of what the hell they tried. So to be clear, in the last 5 years, you've tried these 13 programs. List them, but you thought this didn't work because of that. 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 Is that what I'm hearing? Did you try anything else? No, that's it. Okay, got it. I think I know what the problem is, but I got to run right now. Let's hop on a call. I got just a couple more questions for you, and I think I have exactly what might be good for you. You open to that? Now they've invested all the time to sharing with you all this information, and you just so happen to know their whole situation. And despite all of that, you still think there's a solution. They're going to show up to the call because they got to know. Gold, all of this will make you lots of money. Urgency questions is optional. This is only if you want to further qualify and it's in line with how the conversation is going. This is a great question, but it, I think, gets used out of context and a little overused, and it can be a little aggressive, especially if you don't have loads of leads. But you could say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to fixing this problem? You'll get a real quick gauge on how important it is to them. And if they say it's a 1, say, why is it not important to you? It's just not. I don't really give a. Okay, cool. Then we got nothing. If it's not important to you, then it's not worth my time to help you solve it. That's just really where it ends. Now, usually that's not the case. Okay. But if you could do like where they might give you a 7. Okay, why is it not a 10? You 7. Why is it not a 1? It's not a 1 because it's important. And then they might explain to you, why is it so important to you? This, that, and the other. It sounds like it's a little bit more than a 7. Is that true? Yeah. Like you could do that, but it has to be in the right context. Use at your own discretion. Okay. Transition into providing feedback. So I appreciate you all sharing that with me. I wonder if you might be open to a different perspective. No, said no one ever. Yes. Okay, cool. Interestingly enough, we actually have a great whatever framework that makes it easier to get benefit. And by the way, these little send things, this is where I would break up the message if I was in Messenger, and I would not type this into a big long paragraph. What those little send things are. Okay. So interestingly enough, or some variation of that might be a little bit formal. If you're talking to a homeboy who says dog, you might be, interestingly enough, sir, we just so happen to have a perfect solution for lose rapport. You're like, we might actually have, I think we have, based on what you've shared with me with XYZ, we actually have a framework that, despite all of that stuff you just shared with me, still allows this result. And then send again. So I would break up messages. By the way, this is key. And you'll see this when on this document, when you go to the linked, there's all these screenshotted chat conversations. You'll see that if you want to send multiple paragraphs, you send them in sequential messages. You don't send them like that if you're going to send back-to-back questions or back-to-backs. Okay. And you'll see examples of that. So what we found is that you're missing a few key fundamental. If you're missing a few key fundamentals, it won't matter what the fuck you do. Okay, what are those fundamentals, they say? So problem, they said, or business is just like a house. If the foundation of the house isn't strong, it'll keep crashing down. Does that make sense? Yes. They'll say, yeah. And then they'll be like, now they're curious. What does this person know that I don't? Now they're interested in you because we got so interested in them and we just dangled a little carrot. So they might have some shit. What we found is there's only a few things missing. Really? What the f are those things? Happy to share with you. And they said right here, don't answer them thoroughly. Just pitch the call. Now you're in control. Your time is valuable. We have to express that. Tell you what, I've actually got to jump on a call in a second. Whether you do or you don't, say this. Busy people get on calls. People who are poor and broke stay on chat all the time. So if you're on there for more than 10 minutes, slowly but surely, they're going to think you might need them. So I got to get on a quick call. Let's do this, though. Would you be against a quick call? I got to jump on a call in a sec. Would you be against a quick call to walk you through these frameworks? Might be easier than that's one way. No, I wouldn't be against it. You'd also say, I got to jump on a call real quick. I'd be happy to share with you those frameworks if you'd be open to jumping on a call. You tell me what you want to do. Or you could go into what I shared with earlier of, before I share with you these frameworks, I just want to make sure that there's actually a few follow-up questions that may determine where I go from here. I got to jump on a quick call real quick. Would you be against hopping on just a short Zoom with me? And I just got a couple more questions for you. It might be easier on Zoom, and then I'll be able to point you in the right direction from there. Something of that nature. Okay. I got to go. I'm going to share with you some stuff. That's what you're doing. Okay. Example script 2. Let's see. Where is this from? No worries. Just trying to understand exactly where you're at so I can help in the best way I can. I appreciate you sharing all of that. Would you be open to a different perspective? Sure. Smart. Honestly, we have a bunch of resources, but based on what you shared with me, there's a couple nuances that might require a human touch. It's probably going to be the most effective is if I hook you up with, okay, this is with, if you're setting for somebody else. If I hook you up with this person, he'll be able to walk you through the frameworks. Would you be against me connecting you with him? So if you're setting for somebody else, you want to edify the person that you're scheduling for because they built the trust in you. You got to transfer the trust to this person. Honestly, I'm good, but this person, best in the world. And usually they don't let me do this, but they said, if there's somebody who absolutely is going to get loads of value out of this, they said I could hook him up. So I might piss him off, but I know that you said you're committed. You got the problem. He's the master at it. I could walk you through it, but honestly, this is like me setting you up with Michael Jordan. Would you be against that? No, that'd be awesome. So then you just connect them. So then you transition to a sales call, lock in the call. You want to, when you do this, have the booking link open. So whenever you book a call, use Calendly, whatever you use, Go High Level. I don't give a shit what calendar scheduler you use. You schedule it right then and there. You open Calendly or whatever your booking link is, and you book it as if you were them booking it on a page. So it instantly enrolls them in whatever. If you have an email sequence, it sends them the calendar invite. It sends them links to whatever the is in the calendar invite. What you don't want to do is manually do that and then have to go plug it in later. If I'm setting calls, I have a messenger open and then I have a booking page open. And as I'm asking them these questions, I have, what's your schedule like over the next few days? Oh, I'm free on this day. That's what you do on the first step of the calendar thing is you select a day. And so you're looking as setter on the calendar availability and you just go through the process for them. And you ask them the questions that they would ask on the calendar booking link. You just ask them manually and plug in their answers for them. So I'm free on this day. Cool. Let's see. I'm not sure why makes sense is on here. That might be a wrong error. Okay, great. On that day, does this time or this time work better for you? 4 p.m. works. And you could go morning or afternoon, depending on what the availability is. If your availability is you have 2 slots, tell them what the 2 slots are. If you have 3, tell them 3. Don't tell them more than 3. Cool. What email should I send the calendar invite to? You type it in. What's your cell number? Type it in. Got it. Just sent you the invite. And then I would hit send on the invite. This is where we tie down. Can you do me a quick favor and check to make sure you got it? Yes. Can you do me a favor and accept it? If you're using Google Calendar and they accept it, you'll see a little green checkbox. If you don't see the checkbox, you say, I didn't see the checkbox. Can you confirm you accepted the invite? That matters. If they don't accept it, it's not going to show up on the calendar. So if you're handing it off, awesome. Let me connect to you real quick. We won't really cover. Again, this just reiterates why this is the handoff from a prospect's point of view. You're just the person introducing them to another person to help them with a thing. They don't know it's a set. Okay. They don't know they're being set. If you do this right, they don't know they're being set. Okay. The jargon that you use internally to talk, I set this person. You don't use that same language with a prospect ever. I set you. No, you don't. Like nobody wants to be set. We're serving. We're helping. We're helpful people. The best way to help is on a call. Yes, we had to set an appointment for the call, but I didn't set you in my sales. Huge difference. Just as you'd introduce a friend to another person, you give them some context. Hey, so-and-so, this is my friend Sam. I was chatting with Sam and he had some challenges with his whatever. And I thought it would be best to introduce him to you. Sam, this person is the genius that I was telling you about. Then you do a 3-way DM. If you're handing off, this is the person I was telling. Just like anybody, ever done a 3-way text intro with somebody? James, this is Chris. Chris, this is James. I was telling you about Chris with these things. Chris, I was telling you about James. Got you scheduled in the calendar. The invite's already sent. Just wanted to make sure you guys connected in here. Then the closer for sure needs to come in and go, hey, nice to meet you, and develop the relationship from there. The handoff needs to happen. It needs to happen fast. That closer needs to be like, oh, hey, you're in great hands. This is amazing. I love you. Okay. Thanks for connecting us. Just to make sure we're effective. Is it cool if I ask you a quick question? Now we're asking more questions. We're being more interested. Okay. And this is a little nuanced. If it's your own self, you can pretty much stop before we got to the handoff piece. But this, if you're setting for somebody else, this is a failure point. So when you hire a setter to set for you and they don't do this right, you're going to have a whole bunch of no-shows and you're going to think your setter's a moron. They're not a moron. You just didn't know this or train them on it. So I'm training you on it. Cool if I ask you a quick question. So if the setter sets for you, yeah, hey, nice to meet you. Oh my God, yay. Can I ask you a quick question? Wait for the prospect to reply. Okay. The setter and the closer should monitor this conversation closely. This is very critical. This is where it fails. So if the prospect does not reply within 2 hours, either the setter or the closer, whoever gets to it first, should say, hey, just making sure you saw this. Speed is critical. It's a ping pong match and we got a 2-hour delay here. And it just so happens one person is swapping out for another in this ping pong match. So if they don't reply within 2 hours, either the setter or closer should say, is everything within another 2 hours? Is everything okay? We're hitting ping pong ball back at them. Like, we're in a game here, pal. Hit it back. Right? That's the idea. So once a prospect replies with permission to have the closer ask a question, the closer should ask, cool, just a couple of quick things. First, setter name sent me some additional notes from your chat, but is there anything else that they didn't mention that you feel I need to know before we chat tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Yeah, actually, this, or no, I told him everything. Whatever it is, that's more information. Great. One more thing, based on what you mentioned about your challenges with X, Y, and Z, I have a quick resource that'll help us hit the ground running before our call. And if I sent you a short video, would you watch it before we chat? It'll help us be super effective. This is your core conversion content in the pre-call page from your Leads Machine Masterclass. If they watch that, we'll have everything that they need to know, and they'll already be pre-sold. And they already have 3 beliefs shifted, the main beliefs that need to get them to buy. So the closer's job is to get that person to watch that without being too pushy. So it seems like they're being too pushy. So we got to frame it in their best interest, just so we can get the most out of our call. I know you're busy. I'm busy. We're busy. We're super busy, awesome people. Fly through that on 2x speed. It'll help just both of us get through the call quicker and get you to solution faster. Can you do that? Yes, I can. Excellent. And again, if they don't reply, just making sure you saw this. Is everything okay? Cool. And then when you send it to them, cool, it's the first video on this page. And then you send them, again, what I just said, that page with the video on it, or if it's a guide, whatever. Can you think you could read this guide? Ideally a video, whatever. Get them to consume the thing. Think you can fly through that before we chat? Yep, great. Looking forward to connecting tomorrow at 2 p.m. We'll be meeting on this link, paste link. Even though it's in the calendar invite, you paste it again. Just because I know how to go to Mrs. Jones' house doesn't mean I don't also ask her for instructions and directions. Just because I know she knows my name doesn't mean I don't ever write it down and repeat it back to me. Incredibly important. This is tying down. So it's in the calendar invite, but I figured I'd just make it a little easier for you because you have how many of you guys have ever gone back to a message conversation that maybe somebody sent you a link and that's where you tapped on the link? If it's not there, do you feel great or do you feel frustrated? Feel frustrated because now you got to go wrestle through your email. Nobody likes to open their email in the first place, or go to your calendar invite and you can't tap on the link because it wasn't hyperlinked. And now your experience is one of frustration. So I want to make it easy for them to find this link everywhere. So that when the time for the call comes, they can open up anything and tap and just be like, wow, that was a breeze. Here I am. And there's no objections to showing. I don't want a technical objection to showing. Jesus, I did all of this work and now they can't find a link because I was too lazy to paste it in the DM and make it easy for them because that's where they're going to go. That was their last communication point. And if it's not there, they're going to feel like, and if they feel like now they're just going to get on the call annoyed and disgruntled and 6 minutes late up your day. Set them up to win. All right. If the call is booked more than 1 day out, 24 hours before, the closer should send, hey, prospect name research up on you a bit. I've got some great stuff for you on our call tomorrow. Looking forward to it. The prospect does not reply positively in some way before the end of the day before the call. So if the call is right now Wednesday, I would send them something. If I book the call right now for Wednesday, about 24 hours from now, I would say, hey, researched up on you a bit, checked you out, reviewed our notes, super stoked for the call. I'm ready for you. Did you have a chance to go through the thing? If they don't reply the following morning, hey, just want to make sure we're cool for tomorrow or cool for this afternoon. Did you have a chance to go through the thing? Can you please confirm? Now, if they still don't reply, hey, prospect name, hope you're okay. I'm going to have to go ahead and reschedule our calls. I have not heard back from you. When will be better to connect? And if they still ghost after all that, just send some sort of a question mark, but most likely whatever. At least now their email is in your system and you can hit them with email and maybe get them again and figure out. Then I would evaluate, where did we go wrong? What was said by the setter? What was said by me? How fast was I? Like I said, if that happens, speed up. Most likely it's a speed issue. They got bored with the ping pong game because you wouldn't hit the thing back because you were too busy doing whatever the fuck else it is that you were doing. And you can send GIFs and stuff. I don't care. Get creative. If you shouldn't have to. If you do all of what I just said, you shouldn't have to. It should be dialed, tied, they'll show. And if you're the setter, can follow up inside of that 3-way DM and say, hey, how did the call go with the closer? How did the call go with Joe? I was super excited to hand you off to Joe. The call happened. The happened. I'm invested in this now, man. You got to keep me in the loop. You got to act like it's a human conversation because it is. People act like it's a set, like somehow human dynamics don't exist. I think that is the end of today. Holy shit, we did it. Was that helpful? Oh my God.